Hopefully this video will be quite short as we go over the Parallax Background. The Parallax Background is it's a pretty powerful tool for making some really cool looking backgrounds, but it's also a little bit confusing and involves some basic maths. So let's get into it. It's going to end up looking like this. Now you can see that I've made some of a level here, and I've also done some stuff with my camera, which I'll show you in just a sec. So with the camera, firstly, we don't need that enabled. But if you go down to the Node 2D component of the camera and change the transform, in my case about -50, it's going to bring it up above the player, and that way the player will be lower at the bottom of the screen. The other thing you'll want to do is set the limit of the camera. So left means that the camera won't, 0 means that the camera on the x-axis won't go past this, so we're not going to see this void that's out here. Top means it won't go past the 0 on the y-axis. Right, I'm not too worried about that. It's just going to keep going to the right as far as it is. And 700 down means that the camera, and this is the bottom of the camera, not the top of the camera, so it actually takes that into account. We don't need to sort out the math of the height of the camera and where that's going to be. So we just want to say don't go below 700. And that is, I actually probably want that to be about 500 to be honest. And then the camera won't go below that point there. That's probably even too high. Let's go 350, and then the camera won't go below that point. So that's all we need to do with that. But what we're going to do is I'm going to actually hide this and make a new parallax background from scratch. The reason why is that doing this is essentially a lot of trial and error sometimes. So I've got one there ready to go with all the values that we need. So the first thing we're going to add is a parallax background node. It's child of the canvas layer. The canvas layer is something that always appears on top, and the parallax background always appears in the background. So let's go ahead and add 2 children here. We're going to need a parallax layer. We can duplicate that with Control D. The first one I'm going to call clouds, and the second one I'm going to call foliage. So there we go. We've got these 2 things here. Now, as children of these, we're going to add in a texture rect. Now, if you watch other tutorials, you'll probably notice that they add in sprites and then put the sprites on there. And that can work if your parallax components are wide enough to be able to mirror twice over the background without leaving empty spots. These ones aren't, and a lot of them aren't. So we're going to use these here. So for this one, we're going to drag the background into there. And for this, we are going to drag this middle one into there. And now we need to make a few changes. So this is going to be changed to tile, and this here is going to be changed to tile. Everything else is pretty much the same, except we're going to change the size of this. Now, to change the size of this one here in particular, we're going to go down to layout, then we're going to go to transform, and we're going to change the size here to 880. That's going to bump it out like that. Now that is actually probably too wide. We don't need it to be that wide, but it's fine. We could probably go 440. No, because that's only going to give us half of that. Let's go 880 because I've already done the math on that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things across. We can also move this down a little bit. So if we grab that pointer, we'll move it down. So it's about there, covering up the background. The position should be 0 on there. And then this one, we are going to essentially just double the width of it. So the width is 384. That should be 768, I think. So layout, transform, 768. That looks right. Now the reason it's looking like this instead of just kind of stretching it is because we set it to stretch mode to tile here. We can just keep going. It'll push it out as far as we want, but we want it to be 768. So that's what we've done there. Now on the parallax background itself, at the top here for the scroll, we want to set the base scale to be 1:1, so that's fine. Then on the cloud, the motion, we want to unhook this, which is already unhooked, so that's good. And we want to set this scale here to be 0.5 positive, and this to be 0. So it's not going to move up and down. It's just going to move left and right. Now the mirroring, we want to be the same width as this. So 768. Okay, so it's going to mirror it along there. Now what it's going to do, as the camera moves, it's going to keep creating a mirror of it, essentially. And so it'll look like it'll be a never-ending background, essentially. So let's go ahead and do the motion for this one. The mirroring for this one is 880. And the scale for this one, I'm going to put at 0.7 and 0 on the Y. Now that should be it. So I've actually got that other one turned off. Go ahead and play that and see whether it works. Okay, so you can see that the background scrolling. The foliage at the back there is scrolling a little bit faster than the background behind it. And so it looks pretty good. Now, I have locked this because we put the Y scale to 0. It means that that background doesn't scale. You notice that the camera doesn't go below this point here. It doesn't try to follow it down. But that Y scale doesn't go any further. It stays there. So that's really good. It means we can kind of move up and down the camera. It can at times be a little bit disorienting, especially as I move up, but the background doesn't move up. In which case you could try and play around with these 0.2 on the foliage. And let's see what that does. You'll see now that as I go up and down, that also goes up and down a little bit. Yeah, the higher I get, the lower it goes. So I could make it even higher than that, 0.5. But at some point, it's going to look pretty bad. And well, it is subject to the camera, but that actually looks pretty good. All right. So in the next video, we will go ahead and we're going to have a look at creating some collectibles, and then we're going to have a look at some traps, some obstacles for the player to get into and avoid. Then adding user interface, title screen, multiple levels, and well, I said we're going to do the parallax background last, but I think it's kind of boring to look at while you're testing, so let's get it done out of the way, and it looks quite nice now.